Okay, guys, so today we're gonna continue moving on through fiction, more specifically characters. But before I do that, I do want to go over the 2 quizzes that you guys took, including the grammar, because you guys did not do too hot on both quizzes. Just saying. And then I did close out yesterday's, so if you didn't turn it in, you need to talk to me to get it reopened, okay? So let's look at the grammar one. That was Wednesday. Oh, no, that next Wednesday is also your picture day.
For IDs?
No, for the yearbook. Mm-hmm.
So are we gonna do a mask on or do
Oh my God.
Huh?
we do it with our mask? Yeah.
That would be kind of cool if you did it. Okay, so again, this is the way it's always gonna look. You're gonna have the full text. It's not correct text, but it's a full text, just so you can read through it. You don't do anything to that one. Yours was probably mixed up a little bit because I set it to where it randomizes it. But it says, read the sentence below. In the strip, when everything went wrong, Charlie's response was good grief. What? The correct spelling of the underlying word or term is wrong. In English, we call these words that sound the same but mean something different. Homophones, yes, homophones. Homo means same, phones means here, audio, okay? So that's when you remember it. Similes is when you use like or as. A verb is an action. And then prepositions are in, off, at, for, those types of things. Okay. Ms. Garcia put the freshman debaters into the novice division so they could see what it was like to participate in debate. What does novice mean?
Just started learning.
A person who has just started learning or doing something. So think of novice new. Okay, novice new. Okay. Even though there were a lot of unresolved issues and feelings between Christine and Juan, they were still amicable after their divorce. What does amicable mean?
Being with friends around the
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah. Showing a polite and friendly desire to avoid disagreement and argument. So if somebody says they're a very amicable person, that means that they don't try to argue with people. They're very nice and friendly, okay? Miss Garcia had a genuine disdain for the Bronte sisters and refused to read their works ever again. What's the correct definition of disdain?
A feeling of contempt or someone or
Yes,
something.
it's a noun, right? Because it's something that I own. It's not an action, so that automatically eliminated all the verbs because it's not an action. But it is a feeling of contempt for someone or something regarded as unworthy or inferior. So if somebody says I disdain doing, they don't just hate it. They hate it plus some. Okay, and they think that they're better than that. Okay. So this one was an actual grammar question. Other Peanuts characters included Linus, Lucy, and Sally in the strip. Whenever things went wrong, Charlie's response was good grief. In the strip, whenever things went wrong, okay, so it said it twice, which was obviously an issue. So which one was right?
The last one? No, that's too many columns.
It is the first one. Okay, because there's a list, so comma, 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 right? Comma here. And then in the strip, whenever things went wrong, this we consider extra information. Okay. So a way to check that, if the commas are right, a quick trick is to eliminate it. In the strip, Charlie's response was good grief. Still makes sense, right? And that means your commas are right.
I'm trying to find out what the difference is.
Well, because the bottom one has a comma after and.
Oh, the one difference that I didn't
Well, that
see.
difference it's a big difference. So yes, it would be this one, okay? And we are going to continue working on trying to use commas because that, for just people across the board, even people my age still struggle with commas, okay? I like commas, but I'm a weird person. Okay. From the first day, the Peanuts comic strips appeared in newspapers. The Antics of Charlie Brown and his dog Snoopy had readers in stitches. So which one do we think it is?
It's the last one.
Yeah, so that's one. Why?
Because it's got correct capitalization.
Capitalization and verb tense. Right? It was the past. So the first day, Peanuts is the name of the comic strip, therefore it has to be capitalized. Appeared is past tense. In the newspaper, The Antics of Charlie Brown and his dog, we put this in commas. So that's extra information and capitalize it, right? Because if I took that out, it still makes sense. And his dog had ears and stitches. Any questions on that? Okay. Created by Schultz and Charles M. Schultz, the strip first appeared in October 1950.
Yeah.
It's actually this one.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Because we don't have it. Yeah. So, yes, it's this one. So here's another comma, right? The trick for this one is that you should be able to flip it. Okay. So the strip first appeared in October 1950, created by Charles M. Schultz. Okay. And then we're not going to put a comma here because there's no date. It's just October 1950. Make sense? So these are definitely ones that, yes, you need to pay close attention to because you see how there's just slight differences. And the reason I set them up that way is because that's how they appear in the star. You're gonna have a no correction, and sometimes there will be no correction, but you need to like pay close attention. So Trinity was leery of the information Calvin was providing her because he had retrieved it in surreptitious manner. In
In a secret way.
Huh?
A secret way.
In a secret way, yeah. Mm-hmm. What's leery?
Worrying. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I should.
Unsure.
Yeah.
So every week I'm gonna have grammar, and then you guys are gonna have about maybe 5 new vocabulary words. They will be on tests down the future, but these are vocabulary words that tend to appear on the SAT and ACT. So I'm trying to teach you guys so that whenever you do take that test, you won't be surprised by them. Okay, everyone noticed when the most popular girl in school looked at the new girl in a condescending way. Hmm?
No, the second one.
No, it's the second one. So condescending doesn't necessarily mean I want to beat you up, but it does mean that patronizing is kind of like, oh, you're beneath me kind of thing, okay? And a superior way. So when you patronize somebody, have you ever like been talking and then somebody sits there and like answers you kind of in a ridiculous way? Like they're not taking you serious? That's being patronizing. Okay. So don't patronize me. It's like don't sit there and act like I'm dumb or that I'm beneath you. Okay, when Schultz died in February 2000, many wondered if Charlie would ever kick the football.
First one.
And how do I check to make sure my commas are?
You flip that.
Yeah. Many wondered if Charlie would ever kick the football when Schultz died in February 2000. That's your answer. Okay. Not too hard, right? When you actually pay attention to it? Okay. So, we got that one down. Is there any questions about that one?
Mhm.
Okay. So, let's go back to second 9 weeks. And let's take a look at your reading quiz. Some of you did really good. Others,
Grades are exposed.
Okay. So let's look at this question because we definitely got some interesting comments on this one. So O'Brien is constantly listing the different things the soldiers carry with them. Why do you think he does this? And is everything they carry physical and material, or do you think they carry more than these items with them? If so, explain. So, why do you think he's listing it? Yes.
I said because like once they go back, like after the war is over, that they have to give that stuff back to their family members, and he has to like keep a mental note of it.
Okay.
And see stuff was his.
So it's a mental note, right? Because those things are important to them, right? Everything that they carried had some meaning to them, right? Whether it was to save them during the war or just to give them comfort. It's also a lot of stuff, right?
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I said it's just really heavy, and it shows
Yeah.
you the amount of work that they have to put in.
Yeah, and they do this every day. They're way down and they're walking, right? So, and imagine trying to carry all that while trying to stay alive at the same time, okay? And it's not like, are they just walking on a sidewalk? No, they're in the middle of a jungle. What about the fact that you think that they're carrying more than just the physical?
They carry memories of
Memories?
their previous life, and then when they go back, they're gonna have all these terrible.
Yeah, they're carrying
traumatic
memories and trauma, right? They see one of their guys get killed right in front of them. And it talks about it in a very calm, nonchalant way, right? Like Ted Lavender died. When Ted Lavender died. When Ted Lavender, oh, you know, how does Kyle say it? Boom down? Boom down, right? So they're carrying all of this inside. And also think about, they talk about Ted Lavender had all this weed with him. And then he's always anxious. So he's carrying that anxiety with him, right? Those fears. So that's a lot of things to actually be carrying outside and inside. So they're heavy on the outside and heavy on the inside, okay? This one says, Kiowa is a devout Catholic and carried the Old Testament that was given to him by his mother. That was false, because Kiowa is a devout Baptist. He carried the New Testament that was given to him by his father. Yes, he actually uses it as a pillow, right?
Because he likes the smell of the leather.
Yeah, the leather, yeah.
You don't like the smell of leather?
No.
I mean, even if I like the smell of leather, I don't know if I really want to, like, be sleeping on a Bible. But that's okay. Using the text as context, we can infer that Kiowa is Native American, because Kiowa is actually the name of a tribe. Okay, they also give you a hint that he's not white because they say he carries with him his dislike and his distrust of white men.
Well, and then didn't somebody call him,
yeah.
Shut up, Native American?
Yeah. Somebody actually tells him, right? The only thing what does he say? The only thing I like more is a quiet Indian or something like that. Lieutenant Cross was often distracted because he was thinking about Susan.
False.
False. Who's he thinking about? Martha. But he is highly distracted, is he not?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, this one, Lieutenant Cross carried what due to superstition?
Good luck.
The good luck pebble that he would suck on, right? Norman Bowker?
He had the thumb, right?
Yeah, the thumb of the VC. What does VC stand for? Viet Cong.
Oh.
Viet Cong. Okay. Viet Cong. Dave Jensen?
I would assume he had the rabbit's foot.
Robert's foot, and Kiowa carried
And the hunting.
a hunting hatchet, which this one seems the more practical out of all of them, right? Like,
Well, it's just a good luck charm. It's
Yeah.
not like he actually has to use it.
I mean, but
Well, he probably will.
yeah. So, remember, situational irony occurs when something happens that you wouldn't expect. So the way I always tell you guys to remember it is, I wasn't expecting that. If you're reading something and think I wasn't expecting that, more than likely it is situational irony. So on page 10, O'Brien writes, Norman Bowker, otherwise a very gentle person, misspelled that, carried a thumb that had been presented to him as a gift by Mitchell Sanders. The thumb was dark brown, rubbery to the touch, and weighed 4 ounces at most. Why is this considered situational irony?
Because he's a soft person and carries around a thumb.
Yeah.
Because he was perceived to be a gentle person.
Yeah. It's that juxtaposition of gentle, and then this is a harsh reality. Like, you're a gentle person, but you're carrying around somebody's thumb, right? And even the way that they're talking about it, like, I was surprised that somebody was surprised that it was rubbery to the touch. They didn't think that would be it. Other people were like, that's all it weighs. And the fact that you even mentioned the weight is kind of like, I wasn't expecting that you'd tell me this thing weighs this much. Okay? So, and then every third or fourth man carried, there's a claymore, anti-personal.
Mine, right?
I think, yeah, mine. Yeah, mine. It was a mine. So, and then the last one. In the first chapter, they keep talking about a soldier who was shot in the head while coming back from the bathroom break. Who is the soldier? Ted Lavender, yes. Ted Lavender.
Okay.
So when we think about they mentioned him a whole bunch, don't they? Why do you think they keep repeating? Well, when Ted Lavender died.
Well, that's like besides the first dude, this is like the one that like messed everybody up.
Yeah, it was the first time. It was like that significant moment. There was before he died, and then there was after he died. Right?
And it was like,
It was even more shocked because he was just coming back from the bathroom.
Yeah, right. Everybody was just chilled out. You know, Lieutenant Cross is over there thinking about Martha. You know, I was chilling out. Everybody's just hanging out, and then he's down, right? And in reality, when they talk about it, Ted Lavender is the one who feared most of dying, right? He was always constantly thinking about it. So, are there any questions to that?
no.
Okay.
I do have to say that chapter ended very sad. Like it's like the dude that carried around the pebble. I forgot his name.
Yeah, Lieutenant Cross.
Yeah, Lieutenant Cross. He was like, you realized that Martha would never love him. And it's like, geez.
No, he just continues to bring it up. He's like, as much as I love Martha, I know she's one, but she has so many other boyfriends.
Yeah.
But like, he still tries. Like,
He is a classic overthinker, and Miss Garcia can honestly say that because she is also an overthinker. So let's go ahead and move on. We're going to talk about characters today. We're going to talk about characters today and a little bit more on Monday. So everybody knows what characters are, right? So a story would be nothing without me. What is that? Or who am I? I'm a character. Because try to imagine a story with no characters. It's kind of- Could it be a story?
Not really.
It'd be like the mountains.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
characters.
No,
See, what happens is those turn into characters, right? So remember, a character can also be an idea, right? So, but it's still kind of, So you can't really have a story without characters. That would be like trying to breathe without air. So characters are essential to any good story, but what are they exactly? So according to my favorite dictionary, Merriam-Webster, a character is one of the persons of a drama or novel. Therefore, a character is a person in a story. Okay? So I know that sounds really easy, right? Everybody's like, I already know what characters are. But what you guys don't realize is they're pretty complex. So it's not quite as simple as just saying it's a poor person in a story, because if that person is just one-dimensional, that's not going to be a very good story, right? So we have to have something called character development. We're going to build up that character. So we know that character is a person in a story. And what is development? Development is the process of creating or growing something over time. So if we take character and put that together with development, we have creating and growing a person over the span or time of a story. So for good or bad, if the character grows, there's character development, right? It would be kind of really boring if the character stayed the same through everything, right? So if you ever look at a character and think you've changed, or that character has changed from the minute you started reading, that is a form of character development. So there's some technical terms here. It says, to prove my point, here's another more technical explanation of character development. So Bella Rose Pope of the Self-Publishing School explains that character development is the process of creating complex and lifelike characters within a story in order to have the reader become invested in the characters and their life journey. Okay, so that's the key, lifelike. It does not matter if you are reading fiction, sci-fi, romance, any of those, your characters have to be relatable, right? Even if they're an alien, There has to be something that we can connect to that we understand, right? Or we're just not going to be invested in those characters. So why does it matter? Well, if the characters are not believable, the reader is less likely to care about or make a connection to the character and therefore the story. Am I likely to read a story where I don't understand the character at all? I have no connection, I don't care. No, right? The best writers make their characters so relatable that it actually pains you or makes you excited when things happen to them, right? I don't know about you, but when Dumbledore dies in Harry Potter, like I bawled, I threw my book, I was like, I'm done, right? Like I don't want to do this anymore. So, yes.
He had
So,
such a sad way. He didn't even fight. He was just
yes, exactly.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole bunch. I mean, but think about it. So stories, but even in like movies and animes and cartoons. In anime, there's been many times where I'm like, I'm out, I'm done. I'm not ever gonna watch the show again. You just killed off my favorite character. I'm out.
That's why nobody watches The Walking Dead anymore.
Yeah.
Because everybody's dead.
Glenn, yes.
Because everybody's dead.
After they killed Glenn, after saving him from the dumpster, I was like, I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah, that's how I was.
I was like, you can't save my favorite character and then kill him.
And then like the only one left alive is like a Rick on the final episode. It's like
Even the sun
he's back where he
Yeah.
started.
Yeah, exactly. So
Wait.
a developed character draws you into the story and makes it more real for you, right? So it makes it like you are part of the story. So how do we develop these characters? Well, there's some key ways. And this is why I say that characters are not as simple as we think. They fall into two types of categories. We have a round and flat, and a dynamic and static. So round characters are fully realized characters who experience conflict in a believable way. They're essential to a good story. Their motives are revealed through their choices. And when making a choice, they choose what they perceive to be good. Not what we perceive to be good, what they perceive to be good. And then they should evolve over time. So there are these characters that they are making changes. They are growing as we read. We're finding out more about them. They're very interesting characters. Flat characters, on the other hand, lack depth or personality and only display superficial traits. What does superficial mean?
Fake.
Like surface level.
Yeah.
We never get anything deeper. So they serve a specific purpose that helps move the story forward in some way, and they tend to serve as foil characters for round characters, which you're gonna learn what foil characters are, and often utilized to communicate a moral or morals, and sometimes provide comedic relief. So if we think about the first chapter, who would our round characters be?
Lieutenant Cross.
Yes, Lieutenant Cross.
To Lavender because he died. That's a change, correct?
But did we know much about him?
No, I guess he.
I mean, we were getting more information about.
And then it just abruptly stops. So he might actually fall a little bit in between the round and, so we're gonna put Ted Lavender here.
Because he did technically change.
Not
It's just.
chronological,
It's just.
So he was starting to be round, right?
but then I just, I don't know.
And he felt like a bag of concrete.
So he actually served more of a purpose. So if he actually served more of a purpose, then we would consider him black, okay? Who else might be considered a round character?
Who was the person who was talking to the-
Oh yeah, the guy that actually, yeah. So he would be considered what, a flat or round? The one talking to Kiowa, do we know anything about him? No, so he'd be considered a round, right? But Kiowa, is he flat or round? Huh?
He wasn't.
Kiowa?
He didn't really change, did he?
He's not really changing, but we notice who he is over the things that he says. We have more in depth, right?
I already have a
And-
connection.
And they should. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have to. But they're fully realized characters that are real in a believable way. So Kiowa is considered a round character, right? Through these two, we see the difference in these men, right? The one talking to Kiowa, what was his name? Does anybody remember?
No.
No. So that would definitely, so all the other men in the troop, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
All the other troop members.
Would Norman be around character?
Do we know anything really about Norman?
Oh, no, we got a little bit of information with the
Wait, wouldn't Martha be a black character because she just helps progress the story? She's
Yeah.
really,
Oh, yeah.
Martha,
Yeah,
good job.
Martha.
Yes, Martha is definitely a black character. And so let's think about Valker. We do get a little bit of information about him, but we never learn his motives, right? And you could actually take Valker out of the story and it would still work, right? Right, so the difference between flat and rounds are if you can take them out of the story and it still works, then they're probably a flat character. If I take Kiowa and Lieutenant Cross out of that first chapter, does it work as well?
wait, but if you take Martha,
If
like
you
the
take
whole-
Martha out, then he's not distracted all the time.
like the whole origin.
But I could exchange Martha for just any woman. So see, the difference between them is you can't take them out, and we learn their motives by the way they act, right? And if we think about Lieutenant Cross, all the decisions he makes is what he thinks he's supposed to be doing, right? So there's a lot of times where he sits there and he's wondering about the choices he's making. Okay. So I would definitely say the round characters in that chapter are Lieutenant Cross and Kiowa. Ted Lavender was starting to be round and then they killed him off. So he probably fall more into the flat category. All the other troop members and then Martha. What about the narrator? Do we even know anything about the narrator? Do we know who the narrator is? No, right? So right now the narrator is kind of a flat character because we don't know anything about them. And in reality, it could be told by God. It could be told by any story.
It has like some sort of like omnipotence.
Yes, definitely. So the important thing to remember is round and flat characters are not to be confused with dynamic and static characters. So what are those? Dynamic and static characters are ones, so dynamic characters undergo a major transition or change in one or more ways through the story. The development is often subtle. The shift or change is not due to the change in circumstances and typically learns a lesson, which I misspelled, or changes at their core, for better or worse. To our static characters, do not undergo any change. They stay the same throughout the whole story. So let's look at these two round ones. Would Lieutenant Cross be considered static or dynamic?
That's no, because he undergoes a major change where he just stops thinking about Martha and finally does his job.
Yeah, or he's trying to, right? He's getting towards there. So I would definitely say Lieutenant Cross is more of a dynamic character. But let's think about Kiowa. Kiowa is a round character, but is he dynamic? No, he stays the same the entire time, right? Kiowa at the beginning of the chapter is the same as Kiowa at the end of the chapter, right? So he is more of a static character. Okay. Now, most flat characters, almost all flat characters are static.
Wait, but can the difference change like in the story? Because like didn't they say something about Kiowa not liking like because of his stand for the white man, and that he couldn't even like build on that?
Yeah. If that issue had taken more of center stage, we could definitely start saying this. But in reality, he may still distrust the white man, but he's kind of stuck in those circumstances, right? So it never says that he changes his mind about that. And the fact that he still carries that with him means that it's still very much part of who he is. So this is the way you need to look at the differences. I want you to see how very different it is. So you can be round, fully realized, and not be a dynamic character, or you can be dynamic and not be round, right? We may get some superficial traits about a flat character, and they're still dynamic, okay? So in between, that's when you have a fully realized, interesting, layered character who changes significantly throughout the story. But the same cannot be said for static. All flat characters are static. Okay? So if they're one-dimensional, because they really can't change. How do I know they changed if it's one-dimensional, right? They lack depth or personality and do not change throughout the story, to where static characters are characters who remain the same. Right? So Bowker, right? Martha. Does Martha really change? No. She stays his idealized woman with her perfect needs, right? Does that make sense?
That's weird.
Yeah. So, to give you a little bit more context, most main or major characters are dynamic. Secondary characters are commonly static. A round character can be round without ever being dynamic, such as Kiowa, or undergoing any change. All flat characters are static, but not all static characters are flat. Okay? Dynamic and static characters normally appear opposite to each other. So, for example, we have Iron Man. If you ever watch Marvel, he's very different. He's a very different Tony Stark from the very first movie to Endgame.
Yeah.
Right?
Very rich,
Yeah.
spoiled brat.
Yeah, at the very beginning, wouldn't save anybody to save his life. All he wanted was money and women,
Well, he
right?
saved himself to save.
Yes, he would only save himself, right?
But now,
And then he ended up saving the whole.
yeah, now he's
And
gonna
then-
save everybody else.
Yeah, he had to save everybody else, make Miss Garcia cry.
Yeah.
The Marvel characters and the Marvel series, the Harry Potters, those are examples of rich characters that get you invested in them. So invested that they can make movie after movie after movie, and they become so much that character, right? Can we see Iron Man being played by anybody else?
No.
No. Chadwick Boseman, right? Can we see anybody else playing Black Panther?
No.
Absolutely not. People would probably riot if you tried to,
Yeah.
right? So this is very different from Captain America. Now, Captain America is he's a round character. We're invested in him. But does he really change who he is inside from the first to
He
the
loves
last?
America till the end.
Civil War, he went against Iron Man.
Yeah. And in reality, when he picks up Thor's hammer, that's just a verification that he is exactly who he's always been.
Yeah.
Right?
Just in that one, it was Age of Ultron, right? Where
Yeah.
he kind of like
He moves
scooted it off the
it,
table.
yeah. And Thor's like, well, wait a minute. You know, so, and then when he calls or he picks up Thor's hammer and everybody cheered, it was because it was just a realization of, yes, he's who he thought he was, right? So he changed, he didn't. Neither one of them is a villain, right? Both of them are round because they're layered, they're complex, we're invested in them, but one's dynamic versus one's static. Okay, so static is not necessarily a bad thing, it's just, it means they're not changing. Same thing with Star Wars. You have Anakin.
I was about to say, if you don't know who that is, only
Yeah. Anakin Skywalker. Now, me and Coach Johnson got into a long debate about this. Because
one turned evil and the other one.
yes, I say that Yoda is a very static character, right? His core, the core of who he is, does not change from any of the shows or movies, right? To where Anakin absolutely
Massive
changes.
change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coach Johnson wants to say that this one is more dynamic too, because he was more warrior-like at the beginning or when he was younger versus when he's older. But my thing is his core. He may have been warrior-like, but he was fighting for his core, what he believed in.
Man, Yoda can still.
Yes,
smack
Yoda's
somebody.
amazing. When he gets into that whole fight scene, I was like, whoa. Okay, so those are just two examples. Again, they're both considered round characters, right? Very layered, right? Both of them are layered, and you're invested in them, but one changes, one does not.
And Yoda was gone in like one of the third movies. It's fine.
Don't be talking about
You know how long the Star Wars movies are?
that.
I thought a connection.
How long has Yoda been dead since like he first died?
Let's see, he died when he was teaching Luke, right?
Then Anakin died when he lost.
Yeah.
He didn't die. He's still alive.
So, wait, was he reincarnated? Because
Ooh, Yoda? No.
Oh wait. Oh, Yoda.
Because
He's a ghost.
He's
Yeah.
He's a
it's
force
the
no, because there's a child version of him.
Well, no,
That's
the-
as
the-
That's
also died.
that's before.
Yeah,
That's not after the Star Wars. That's
Mandalorian's
before.
Yeah,
not
Mandalorian's
Yeah.
way before.
So that's why people think it's Yoda, but I'm just
No.
troubled.
No.
Yeah, the Mandalorian's not canonical.
Yeah.
The only Mandalorian is Jango Fett and Boba Fett.
So there is gonna be an earpod. I'm gonna go through it with you, but you guys do need to go in, and this time I'm changing it up. I do need you to put your last name first, and then your first name, because here's what Nearpod does: is it alphabetizes it, starting with the first name that's put. So it's alphabetizing you guys by your first name, and I need your last name. Okay. There's 3 activities in here, and it will be for a grade. You do need to follow grammar rules and writing complete sentences. So this is very important because this is very much a grade. So again, we're gonna put Garcia, Andrea, and then you're gonna hit join, but I'm gonna go ahead and just do this, okay? So we know about round versus flat, dynamic versus static. Now we need to actually put that into the types of characters we have, right? So when we're talking about this stuff, it's kind of the character as a whole. But what role do they play in the story? We call those character types. Okay, and again, I have this here just as a reminder of the differences between round and flat and static and dynamic. So these are the 4 most common character roles within the story. They're not the only types, but they're the most common, and they're the ones that we're going to be focusing on. So we have protagonist, antagonist, secondary, and foil. How many of you have heard of protagonist? Okay, and the antagonist? Okay, right, perfect. Secondary? Some of you? And foil? Not the kind that you wrote.
Heard of it, I just don't remember what it is.
And it's not the foil from math either, like it's a character, right? Yeah, the foil.
You know the foil method?
Oh God.
Yeah. She's trying to block it out of her
That
head.
fish for friends, the do stuff
All
together.
right. So your protagonist is the main character or the hero, right? But they don't necessarily have to be a hero. They can be what's called an anti-hero, right? So we have in one of my favorite animes, Naruto. In Jane the Virgin, you have Jane. Harry Potter, of course, you have Harry Potter. And then we've talked about Tony Stark as, we'll say he's the hero because in the end, he is the one that saves everybody, right? So we're going to go with him as the hero, as the protagonist. The antagonist, on the other hand, is a character who opposes the main villain. A character is often seen as a villain. They don't necessarily have to be the villain, but this is normally the role they play. So again, in the anime Naruto, we have Orochimaru. There are many antagonists in Naruto, but this is kind of one of the big one that spans the realm. Okay, Jane the Virgin is Rose, Harry Potter, Voldemort, and then in of course the Marvel series, we're gonna go ahead and go with Thanos, right? Because that was accumulation. He was the big thing that they were trying to fight against.
Make the big throughout.
Yeah. Secondary characters. Secondary characters that are not the protagonist, but they're necessary to the story to progress because they reveal key details and motives and often help encourage the protagonist. Yeah. So we have Jiraiya.
I forgot about Messenger.
Talk about being invested in a character.
Yeah,
Miss Garcia was
yeah,
very
yeah,
invested.
He gets killed by Phoenix.
Oh my God.
How did you
I know. Oh, tears. So many tears were cried.
episodes? I was like 11 when I watched Naruto. I couldn't block out of the movie.
Raphael is definitely a secondary character. We could also go with Michael.
Yeah, isn't
Right.
he's one of the love interests? And
Yeah,
then-
Ziomara, the mom, the grandma. Those are all secondary characters. In Harry Potter, I put Professor McGonagall, but a lot of those characters are secondary characters, right? They're necessary, for the movement of it. And then I'm gonna say Ant-Man because I love Ant-Man. Scott Lang?
He's just that's one of my favorite things of a superpower.
Yes,
Kinda cool.
and he's hilarious. I love him. I love when he starts talking about time travel.
And then
He feels so upset that it doesn't follow the exact rules of Back to the Future. So yeah.
and then he's one of the reasons that they could continue the story because he
Yeah.
figured it out.
So so here's the difference. Most secondary characters are flat characters. However, are these flat characters?
No.
Oh.
No, they're round. Okay, they're very round. So then you have your foil. I like to think of it as, have you ever seen a sheet of foil?
Mhm.
They're reflective, right? That's the way you want to think about a foil when it comes to characters. There are secondary characters that show qualities or traits that are in contrast to the protagonist, but they're not the antagonist. It's somebody you put the main character next to that amplifies
Like a side
their
piece.
traits. It can be a sidekick sometimes, right?
I thought he said
So we have Sasuke, right? Both Sasuke and Naruto are very driven, but they're opposite. And by looking at Sasuke, you can see the characteristics in Naruto. They're highlighted. They're reflected and amplified, okay? Same thing with Petra, right? Petra is not necessarily a bad person in Jane the Virgin, but when you stand her next to Jane, it highlights and emphasizes Jane's characteristics, right? Draco Malfoy.
Boo.
You know, he didn't die as like a lot of times.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah. So Draco Malfoy, right? Most people despise him, but at the end, he kind of comes through, right? But when you stand him next to Harry Potter, in reality, they have very similar characteristics. One just went down a different path. But it kind of emphasizes the fact that Harry Potter is the hero, right? But he's not Voldemort.
no, definitely not.
Then you have, again, Steve Rogers, Captain America, right? He is definitely not a villain. He's just as important. But when you stand him next to Tony Stark,
He just likes to do it in a different way.
yes, you very much, and a lot of times you'll notice in books and in movies, they are going to have them appear opposite each other, right? The foil, so that you can see the highlight the characteristics in the different characters, okay? Now, people could argue the opposite, that Captain America is the hero and Iron Man is his foil, especially if you're looking in, was it Winter's Game?
Soldier.
Yeah, so there you go. So, any questions?
I like Sebastian Stan in general. He's got some good movies.
He's so great.
So let's look at this, Hunger Games.
Oh,
Who is who?
Okay,
Well-
the protagonist is of course Katniss. The antagonist is the
President
Snow.
Snow Dude.
Yeah.
No.
So
Secondary
Is
Peeta.
Peeta.
Foil is Groot.
Yeah. Love Rue.
No,
Wait, no,
Ruth
the-
is
Ruth
secondary.
is secondary.
Because if she didn't die, she would have never done that.
Yeah, and then what's his face that nobody cares about?
Peeta.
Peeta.
Peeta. Not Keita,
What's his name?
Peeta.
I said Peeta.
He is a foil, right?
Like the company who doesn't like when you murder it.
Yeah, they just need him just because.
Yeah. So Katniss is definitely the protagonist. And normally, the protagonist is pretty easy to spot, okay? Then you have the antagonist, again, pretty easy to spot, right? President Snow. Rue is definitely a secondary character. We knew a little bit about her, but we didn't know enough, so she's secondary. Also, is she a flat or round character?
Round.
She's
Or no,
flat.
She didn't do
flat.
anything.
She's flat.
Yeah, we just saw that she got
She's
She didn't-
flat. And was
she
she
didn't
static
look
or dynamic?
static.
She was static. She didn't change. She was the same
Katniss
person.
changed.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Now let's look at Peter. Peter is definitely the foil. Is he round or flat?
Round.
Very round. Is he static or dynamic?
Dynamic.
He's dynamic. He
Yeah,
changes.
the first movie.
Because
Maybe I'm
in the
just
second
blind.
movie, he's like,
I read the book.
His face was like-
I read the book and it's like way different. It's one of those.
Yeah.
Now, what about President Snow? He has a major part, but is he round or flat?
he's flat.
He's
I don't
He
know.
has the
flat.
He just stays the same.
He has the
stays the
same
same.
goal.
So not only is he flat, he's static. His motives stay exactly the same. There is no, this was definitely not a case of where the villain becomes lovable and redeemable, right? No, he stays exactly the same.
Did I have some sympathy at the end of the movie when I saw him die?
I
Maybe.
did. I laughed.
Just a bit.
So, okay. And so you're gonna explain to me who is what they are, okay?